Hello friends, today you are watching my video. I am Protoy Chatterjee and today I am going to teach you glycolysis or glycolysis. So what is glycolysis? So when you hear the term glycolysis, it consists of two things, glyco and lysis. Glyco came from the word glucose and lysis means breakdown. So it is a pathway for glucose breakdown liberating energy. Gives us energy. It is one of the most important pathway in the body because without it we cannot get any energy. Also it is the form of energy in some tissue which does not have oxygen, like RBC. It does not have oxygen, and so it requires glycolysis as the only pathway to generate energy. Now today I am here to make the glycolysis easy for you. So I have a mnemonic. It's a Hindi mnemonic, but you will mnemonic is GG Fufu गिरे बेचारे पी के पानी पेप्सी पोहा. Now this is the mnemonic which will help you to remember the glycolysis as a whole. Now let's see what happens in glycolysis. So after you have a meal, the food enters your body. After digestion, it's broken down into monosaccharide and it is absorbed in the intestinal villi, and after being absorbed from the intestinal villi, it goes into the blood. So after it goes into the blood, the blood glucose level suddenly rises. So if you draw a curve, we will see that our normal blood glucose level is 5 millimole per liter. So here about 45 minutes after meal, your blood glucose rises to the maximum and again came back at the peak level, at the normal level, from the peak to the normal level. So how does it came back to the normal and why does it become so high? It becomes so high because upon digestion of the food products you have ate, the blood glucose level in the body rises. And why it came back to normal? This is because of the excellence of your body, and due to the excellence of your body, it has the mechanism to make down to normal. People with diabetes mellitus, those are the people who have real problem here. Their blood glucose level do not touch the 5 millimole. They start from higher level, goes to further higher level, and come back at a lower. So see, they have this rise in blood glucose level. This is we call it intermittent hyperglycemia, and for this they need various types of drugs for treatment. For example, metformin, sodium glucose transporter inhibitor, many types of kind of drugs you will learn in pharmacology. So what I am trying to convey in through this discussion is that after a test meal of glucose or anything, your blood glucose level rises and it came back to normal after 45 minutes. Become maximum at 45 minutes, and then it slowly came back to normal, and within 2 hours you have perfect normal blood glucose test just as before meal. That's why we do the fasting blood glucose and postprandial blood glucose test after 2 hours after meal, because after 2 hours we will have a blood glucose as before meal. We should have, but people with diabetes mellitus have a different story. So where does the glucose now goes? Your body needs glucose for various purposes. Your body needs glucose for the energy and also all of the other purposes of the body. So what I am trying to show you how your blood glucose now broken down in the body. So first you have glucose. The glucose came to your body. Now the glucose enter your body mostly by GLUT transporter. Which transporter? GLUT. They are glucose transporter, GLUT, glucose transporter. Now when the blood glucose when the glucose enter your body by GLUT transporter, they need to be phosphorylated. Why it needs to be phosphorylated? And for phosphorylation you need ATP. So glucose is being phosphorylated at the expense of ATP. Why are you doing so? Because GLUT transporter does not have a concentration gradient on them, and they are passive transport. So suppose this is blood and this is cell. So if the glucose enter by this, glucose can also exit. So to trap the glucose, you need to phosphorylate it. That's the main reason why are you phosphorylating glucose at the expense of ATP. That's the first step of glycolysis. And the first step of glycolysis is you use this ATP and phosphorylate glucose to glucose 6-phosphate. Now, for phosphorylating glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, there are two enzymes present in our body. One is hexokinase, another one is glucokinase. Now, why there are two enzymes? Why? Have you ever thought of this? You have studied in many books. There are two enzymes. Why such? It would be two enzymes. Why not a single enzyme? Why two enzymes are doing this sort of stuff? Why? What is the need of the two enzymes? Well, actually, to say the need of two enzymes is like this. Your body has two kinds of cell. One is normal cell, that is most cells of the body, and another are liver cell and pancreatic beta cell. So when after test meal of blood glucose, all the cells of our body get the glucose, and all cells do not have glucokinase. Only liver and pancreatic beta cell, these two cells have glucokinase in the. So all cells of the body after a test meal of glucose gets the enzyme hexokinase and trap the required glucose. But it's not that suppose your body needs 10 millimole of glucose and you will only 10 millimole of glucose. You could have eaten 100 millimole of glucose. Anything you can eat. So what the excess 90 millimole of glucose will do? So will it rise the blood sugar? No, it should not do. For normal people it should not. Here comes the enzyme glucokinase. Here is the main effect of the enzyme glucokinase. What does glucokinase do? Glucokinase has a very high 15 millimole km. So it is activated only in the presence of higher blood glucose level. It's not specific in lower blood glucose level and only higher blood glucose level. It has the capacity. It has the capacity to intake blood glucose. It has the capacity to intake blood glucose. So suppose you have taken 100 millimole of glucose. Out of this 10 millimole is used by normal cells and rest 90 millimoles is left. So this will rise the blood sugar. You do not want your blood sugar to rise. In fact, your body don't want. Your body has a mechanism to prevent it. What your body will do? This 90 millimole is brought to liver and pancreas. So in liver and pancreas there is the enzyme glucokinase. What glucokinase will do? Glucokinase will trap it. Glucokinase will trap it and it will enter the liver. So point to be noted here is there are 2 points that you should note from this glucokinase activity. That glucokinase is present only in liver and pancreas. It's activated only at high glucose level. I hope it's clear for you. Now there will be an enzyme, we call it isomerase. What isomerase will do? Isomerase will convert glucose 6-phosphate to fructose 6-phosphate. Just isomerization reaction you have studied in basics chemistry, that glucose is being isomerized to fructose. Both, one is aldehyde, one is ketone. Just isomerization, nothing else, nothing more complicated in this step. Now there will be another enzyme, we will call it phosphofructokinase 1 or PFK1. It will convert fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Now phosphofructokinase 1 is a very important enzyme and it's a rate limiting step of glycolysis. You should remember it that phosphofructokinase 1 is the rate limiting enzyme of the glycolysis. Star marks question. Very important for your professional exam and other exams. So now what phosphofructokinase will do? So how phosphofructokinase will be activated? This is a major concern. And while activation of this phosphofructokinase, that is formation of fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, you also requires a ATP. That is, an ATP is converted to ADP. You utilizing a pi bond single phosphate, that is at the expense of energy. The phosphofructokinase 1 is a very important enzyme. It is highly regulated, highly regulated. And how it's regulated? Fructose 6 phosphate by phosphofructokinase 1 from fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. It is about 99%. 1% will form fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. It occurs only in the liver, only and only in the liver, about 1%. Now, phosphofructokinase 1 forms fructose 1,6 bisphosphate and phosphofructokinase 2 from fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. Phosphofructokinase 2 PFK2 is activated by insulin. Means when you have excess amount of insulin, PFK2 will be activated. When PFK2 will be activated, you will form fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. When there will be excess of fructose 2,6 bisphosphate, it will activate, this compound will activate fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. It will exert a positive effect of activation. Now, increase in insulin therefore increases the phosphofructokinase 2, and increase in phosphofructokinase 2 increases the fructose 1,6 bisphosphate. And so does the reverse is done by glucagon. Increase in glucagon decreases the phosphofructokinase 2, and when the phosphofructokinase 2 is decreased, it decreases the fructose 1,6 bisphosphate formation. That's regulating the glycolysis. That's why we call that fructose 1,6 bisphosphate is the rate limiting enzyme of glycolysis. It's the main reason for calling it so. And another one of the rate is limited by glucose 6 phosphate. Glycolysis you are doing. Why you are glycolysis doing? To produce ATP. Your main objective is to produce ATP. So when there will be excess of ATP, glucose 6 phosphate will be inhibited. Also, when there is excess of ATP, phosphofructokinase 1 is also inhibited. And this inhibition is made cut. That is, this inhibition is made invalid by the enzyme fructose 2,6 bisphosphate. Therefore, you need fructose 2,6 bisphosphate to remove any kind of inhibition on phosphofructokinase 1 for the glycolysis to continue. This is your major takeaway from this lesson. Now, after fructose 1,6 bisphosphate, we will have an enzyme called aldolase, which forms two intermediate compounds. One is called glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, and another one we will call dihydroxyacetone phosphate. Now both are interconvertible by an enzyme called isomerase. Isomerase can convert both of them to. Now there will be another step called glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase. It will convert glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate to 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate or 1,3-bisphosphoglyceric acid, anything you can say. But important thing to remember is here you are utilizing NAD to form NADH, nicotinamide adenine dichloronucleotide to form nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide hydrogen, that is reduced compound. So you should remember this, and you should also remember that this is the step where oxidation is occurring, and this is the only oxidation step of glycolysis. It's a star mark question. What is the only oxidation state of glycolysis? And you should be able to say that this is the only oxidation step of glycolysis. Now here the products are formed that are multiplied by 2. You know why? Because dihydroxyacetone format is forming, and dihydroxyacetone format is interconvertible to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. It means you have 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. It's a 3-carbon compound. Also it's a 3-carbon compound. Our 6-carbon glucose is broken down into 3 carbon. If dihydroxyacetone phosphate is not isomerized to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, then it can be used upon enzyme called glycerol 3-phosphate dehydrogenase to form glycerol 3-phosphate. And you know from your fatty acid lectures, you have studied earlier, that it can be used for triglyceride synthesis. So now we have 1,3-BPG or 1,3-bis-phosphoglyceric acid. So the 1,3-BPG will use an enzyme called phosphoglycerokinase to form 3-PGA, 3-phosphoglyceric acid. 3-phosphoglyceric acid will use an enzyme called mutase to form 2-phosphoglyceric acid. 2-phosphoglyceric acid will use an enzyme called enolase to form pyruvate, phosphoenol pyruvate. And phosphoenol pyruvate will use an enzyme called pyruvate kinase to ultimately form pyruvate. Now the here important step is 1,3-bis-phosphoglyceric. You are forming 3-PG, 3-phosphoglyceric acid. Here you are doing the reverse thing. Here you are utilizing ADP, that is a low energy compound, to produce a high energy compound. So this is the first example of substrate level phosphorylation in glycolysis, because you are using a substrate to produce phosphate. That's why it's called substrate level phosphorylation. And it's the first example of substrate level phosphorylation in glycolysis. Now the 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate form 3-phosphoglycerate. Then here is an important pathway you should know, that from 3-phosphoglycerate you can have pathway in RBC called 2,3-BPG, 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate, and from 2,3-BPG you can again form 2-phosphoglycerate by the enzyme phosphatase. But this is only true for RBC. This is only true for RBC. It does not happen in normal cell. This is only true for RBC. In RBC there is a pathway called RL pathway. This pathway requires this 2,3-BPG. That's why it is formed. And you don't take away anything except from this. Now you have 2-PGA, then you have enolase enzyme, then ultimately we are forming phosphoenol pyruvate. And if you were to ask what is the highest energy compound of glycolysis, then this is the answer. This is the highest energy compound of glycolysis. Highest energy compound. And its energy, you should know, is equal to twice that of ATP. Because upon production of it, you are again producing ATP. Upon breakdown of phosphoenol pyruvate, you are producing ATP. So the enzyme pyruvate kinase and broken down of phosphoenol pyruvate to pyruvate is the second example of substrate level phosphorylation in glycolysis. Second example of substrate level phosphorylation in glycolysis. You should remember it. Now the pyruvate formed can be done in two pathways. Pyruvate can be done in two pathways. Pyruvate can either in the presence of oxygen can form acetyl-CoA, or in the absence of oxygen it forms lactate. So why it forms lactate? Because see here you are utilizing the form, that is you are forming the NADH. The NADH in a cell, as you are forming, you are utilizing the NAD. The NAD gets finished up. So you need to replenish the NAD. So the NADH that was formed here, this NADH we are using it here. This NADH is reversed back to NAD. The cell can again use the NAD. So I have told you the mnemonics of GG, Fufu, Gire, Bechare, PK, Pani, Pepsi, Poha. Now see how you apply it to here. Glucose stands for G, glucose 6-phosphate again G, fructose, Fu, Gire, BPG, Bechare, PK, morning, Pepsi, Poha. In this way, you apply the mnemonic to remember the intermediates of glycolysis. This will help you to remember the intermediates. And one more thing to say, I have shown you that the 2,3-BPG is formed in RBC. What is the utilization of this 2,3-BPG? So you know our hemoglobin has 2 alpha plus 2 beta subunits. Our hemoglobin has 2 alpha and 2 beta subunits. These 2 subunits carry oxygen. This is the utilization of this. These 2 subunits carry oxygen. Now these 2 alpha subunits and these 2 beta subunits, when 2,3-BPG is formed in hemoglobin, it formed to form 2 alpha units, but beta units bind together to 2,3-BPG and beta units. So it forms a dimer, and the alpha units remain on the dimer. Now, what is the advantage of this beta 2,3-BPG dimer formation? See, if you draw a curve of dissociation of oxygen saturation or desaturation and partial pressure of oxygen along x-axis and oxygen saturation on y-axis, we will see this is the curve for normal hemoglobin, it is HbA in normal, that is 2 alpha 2 beta, 2 alpha plus 2 beta. But the curve look like this in HbA hemoglobin adult, that is for binded with 2,3-BPG. So what is the advantage of this curve? Suppose we will say this is the 30 millimeter Hg pressure, and this is the pressure of about 100 millimeter Hg. So the partial pressure of oxygen is about 100 millimeter of Hg at this point. So this represents our lungs. And the partial pressure of oxygen about 30 millimeter of Hg at this point. This represents our tissue level. So what happens is that in the tissue, that is in your tissue, you have low partial pressure of oxygen, C, at 30, but the oxygen saturation is very high. Here also the oxygen saturation is near to 100, so oxygen will not unload. But if you have it is bind to 2,3-BPG, you see the oxygen saturation decrease below 51, that is about 30 around here. So at this 30 oxygen saturation, oxygen will unload easily, that is it will be easily removed from the hemoglobin, so that oxygen is delivered to the tissue. At tissue you need to deliver oxygen, it's your main objective. So if oxygen is not delivered and it remains at 100, then your tissue will not get oxygen. So you need some mechanism by which oxygen can be unloaded. That is done by 2,3-BPG. 2,3-BPG binds to beta subunit. Beta subunit releases 2 oxygen, and as soon as the beta subunit releases 2 oxygen, the oxygen subunit and the hemoglobin alpha subunits also releases its 2 oxygen. The hemoglobin has 4 oxygen and all 4 are released. And when it occurs, when the oxygen saturation decreases. So your oxygen saturation is not decreased without the presence of 2,3-BPG. In the absence of 2,3-BPG, your oxygen saturation is very high. You can see at this level your oxygen saturation. This is very high level, and it will never, the hemoglobin will never tend to leave oxygen at this saturation. But in the presence of 2,3-BPG, you can see your oxygen saturation decreased to a very less extent, so, about 30, and here it will easily release, and when it will easily release, your tissues have oxygen and they are happy with the oxygen, they will enjoy. So I think you like this video, and if you like it, I hope you like it, and if you have any query, do like the video and let me